Welcome back, everybody. We are doing cosmic blueprints. Up until now, you've probably been hearing me call this class "Secrets of the Night Sky." The truth is, that's also the title, but I like this one better. So we're changing it to cosmic blueprints. Excuse me. The learning for this week's class is dedicated by Torah Center founders Michael and Joseph Gad and families in loving memory Lili Nishmat, their father Naftali ben Leah and Nisim Gad alav Shalom, by his wife Shifra and children. Okay, we are starting today the month of Adar Pisces. Okay, now the truth is that this is the last month of the Jewish calendar. And we started about 6 months ago. We've already gone through 6 classes. This is our 6th class today. So we're halfway through the Jewish calendar. The next phase of the months from Adar, from Nisan, all the way up until Elul are all very interesting, but certainly Pisces, the month of Adar, has its own uniqueness to it. We're going through these classes because we want to develop a deeper understanding and appreciation for the cosmic nature of the Zodiac. We are not looking at the Zodiac as a source of insight into how things will unfold in our lives. We look at the Zodiac as a way of having a deeper appreciation for the influences that influence our lives. They don't define who we are. We simply use the information to make better choices, more informed choices about my personality, my traits, the people around me and their traits. And the more I can understand them, hopefully we can create a world of recognizing that every single person is truly a reflection of God, that each person was created with Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. That's what we want, because we want to build a world of peace, of love, of happiness, and that can only happen when we recognize we're all in it together. Okay, Cosmic Blueprints, Adar Pisces. Source number 1, Safra Yetzirah, the book of formation, says, the sign of Dagim, Pisces, is designates for the month of Adar, was formed by the means of the letter Kof. Remember that each month has a particular letter that is associated with it, and the letter Kof is or Kuf is the letter that is associated with the month of Adar, okay, which with the emotional attribute of merriment. It corresponds bodily organ of the spleen, and the combination of the divine name for the month is Yod, Vav. I don't go through all that. I could do a whole class on just the letters and the way that the letters are aligned and what they're teaching you, but it's just too much information and it's too complicated to go through that with everybody. So just know that it's there. Okay, so the letter, look at number 2, the letter Kof symbolizes Kedusha, sanctity. The Hebrew alphabet, it comes after the letter Tzadik, symbolizes righteousness. So if you look at the Hebrew alphabet, you have, Kuf, you have Tzadik, Kuf, Resh, right? Tzadik, the letter Tzadik, the number 90 in Hebrew, right? The next number, the next letter is Kuf, which is 100. So there's a Tzadik represents righteousness. So you have righteousness, and then post-righteousness, you have the letter Kuf, okay? The level of sanctity is spiritually above the level of righteousness, because righteousness, one is still involved in the battle against his evil inclination, which he constantly subdues. Whereas sanctified one, Kedusha, Kuf, has successfully transformed his evil inclination to the good. In this process that is implied by the ordering of the month, first Shvat and then Adar. Remember how last week we said that each month has the month of Adar, of Tevet, Shvat, and Adar represent the tikkun for the human body. And we said that the month of Tevet represents closeness and intimacy. The month of Shvat represents food. And we said the month of Adar is drinking, right? So the month of Pisces has to do with water also, right? In a different kind of way. So you have this interconnectedness over here, but the letter Tzadik is not like the letter Kuf. Tzadik represents righteousness. Kuf is the righteousness that you've already accomplished. There's a difference between working towards attaining a particular level, right? Working towards achieving a particular goal, and then actually living the goal. So the Kuf is not like the Tzaddik. The Tzaddik is the striving for righteousness. The Kuf is living in that state of righteousness. Okay. Now, let's just double tap on this letter Kuf for a second. The word Kuf is always associated with Kedusha, Kadosh, holiness. What does the word Kedusha, holiness, actually mean? So you'll often find translations, like the word kedusha means to set apart, it means removed, set aside. The word kedusha you'll find in the word mikudeshet, right? At a wedding, you say, Hare at mikudeshet li b'tabat zo. Will you be consecrated? Will you be holy to me with this ring? And the word mikudeshet is tied to the word miyuchedet, miyuchad, which means dedicated, special, right? Miyuchad means like it has some kind of uniqueness to it. Okay, so how do what we as a Jewish nation become a goy kadosh? We become a nation that is holy. We become an am miyuchad, right? We become a separate, unique nation. Now, you have to understand this idea of holiness, right? The idea of kedusha is to find or to dedicate what is miyuchad. When you find and dedicate what is miyuchad, right? Like within an object or within time, with a time period, you are discovering that point of yichud, that unique point of unity. So, for example, the infinite point within time is Shabbat. So I am miyuchad, I make Shabbat special, and that specialness of time is expressed through the holiness of Sabbath, right? Nothing gets in the way of my Shabbat. My Shabbat is everything, and in that space of me creating that everything, that is where the energy, the flow of Shabbat actually comes from, right? And that's what he says over here, right? The letter Kov symbolizes Kedusha, sanctity, and it's expressed in this month. Now, number 3, he says over here that Rabbi Matziel Glazerson says that during the Shvat, a person must measure up all to his evil inclination in the form of righteous, the righteous one who eats to sustain his body. During Adar, whose most outstanding feature is Purim, the person attains the summit of holiness through feasting and merriment to the point beyond self-knowledge. Well, we'll explain this. Knowledge and perception, whose center of revelation occurs during the month of Shvat, on the new year of the fruit-bearing trees, are thus transcended during the month of Adar. The month of Adar marks the end of the 6 winter months and corresponds to Elul, the 6 summer months. This correspondence is mirrored by the letters that form the nature of these signs. Adar was formed by the Kof, whose numerical value is 100, while Elul is formed by the letter Yud, whose numerical value is 10. In the Hebrew numerical system, the first 9 numbers, 1 to 9, are what we call primary numbers, right? Once you have anything beyond that, the next expression of those numbers are the numbers that are followed by a 0. So like 90 and 900 in Judaism, obviously they're different sums, but from a spiritual place, they're expressing the same thing. It's just a greater expression of 90. 70 and 700. 70 is the highest expression of 7. So once I go from 70 to 700, it doesn't really matter anymore, because that highest expression is 70. And therefore the numbers are infinite, right? So I don't really care about 75 or 700 or 7,000 or 70,000 or 7 million for that matter. 70 is that beginning of that multiplication expression, the 10 times, okay? So there's these 2 months, Elul and Adar, which are similar because they're both end months. Elul is the last month of the calendar when we're talking about it in respective to Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah. And Adar is the last month in respective to Nisan, right? We know there's 2 different beginnings of the year. You have a physical beginning of the year and you have a spiritual beginning of the year, right? And the month of Adar, or the month of Nisan, represents the spiritual aspect of time, okay? And whereas Tishrei represents the physical manifestation of time. 2 different things. One represents the holiness of the calendar, and the other represents man's work, man's opportunity, man's responsibility to create and develop himself in this world, right? That's in the month of Tishrei. So you have this duality, the month of these 2 months. Now, the Zohar says on the next page that the letter Kaf represents the posture of imitation, like a kof, like a monkey, imitating man. The posture, in the positive sense, implies the limitation of the ways of God, whereas its negative sense represents the conformist imitation of evil. So look at that number 5. In the Talmud, in the Zohar, when discussing the spiritual implications of the letter Kuf, the Talmud talks about the positive aspect of the positive aspect, the imitation of God's transcendent sanctity and the sanctity. And the Zohar talks of this negative aspect, the monkey imitating the man. The negative imitation, exemplified by the tribe of Amalek, whose letters spell out Kof, Amal Kof, the mischief of the monkey. Right? Now let's explain what all this means. Okay, so you have these two letters. You have Kof, right? Now, why is Kof the Kof, the monkey? Okay. Now, in the deeper Kabbalistic sources, they'll point out that really Kof, right, is an imitation of the letter He. Right? If you think about it, the difference between a Kuf and a He is a little bit more ink going down, right? A little bit more ink spilling down. So they look very similar, but they're very different. Now, imitation, laughter, haughtiness, lightheadedness, playing around, mockery is all connected with the letter Kof, because that's the monkey. It's connected to the month of Adar. These are all traits that can be positive and negative. We could talk about laughing in a very positive, profound way, like a healing way, or it could be a very cynical, mocking, negative kind of laughing. Now, what's interesting is that the first time in the Torah you see the way a word is used. For example, the Gemara says that whenever you see the letter Tet, the number 9, Chet and Tet, in your dream, know that it's good. The dream is good. Why? Because Tet is associated with Tov. Why is Tet associated with Tov? Because God saw that the light was good, Tov. The first time the way a word is used in the Torah itself, from a spiritual place, that defines the letter itself. So Tov is connected to Taf. Tet, right? Tet. So now, let's talk about the first time the letter Kuf and He are used, right? The first time is with a guy by the name of Cain. By the way, is it interesting that Cain and Hevel are brothers, and one brother starts with a Kuf and the other starts with a He? Not an accident over there, right? And by the way, what does Cain do? Hevel do? He copies his brother. Gam Hu, he also wants to bring a sacrifice, right? There's a paradigm. These are archetypes of personalities, not just individuals that we're reading about their stories and their lives and things that they've done. We're also learning about the archetypes of these people. Cain and Hevel are two opposites. What is Cain? Cain is the Kuf, drawn into the earth, right? He's more subdued. He's more grounded in earthly things. Hevel is the head, detached from the earth. He's flying all over the place. He is the shepherd, Hevel, right? Cain is the farmer. Cain is the guy that is connected to the earth. So you have two different personality types over here. But there's a level of imitation that's being played out over here that is expressed with these two different people. And therefore the letter Kuf and He are mirroring their personality traits in some level. Right? So Kuf can be a very profoundly, deeply lost in the world of material, whereas the Hevel can be someone who's so lost in the world of intellectual pursuits, like the air, like the wind, right? That he loses himself. He's not grounded. And therefore they represent these two boys. Hevel is the complete nullification of all materialism to an extreme, which is bad. And Cain is the complete usage of all material things, almost to the point where he negates the spirituality, to the point where he rationalizes killing his brother, right? So you have this fascinating, tug of war between these two different brothers, and they're each representing a different expression of two personalities that are at odds with one another. And this is reflected in the month of Pisces. What is Pisces, by the way? How many fish are in the month of the Zodiac, Pisces? 2. It's interesting. Why are there 2? Why isn't one enough? And by the way, what's also interesting about them is they're both facing away from each other. One is looking to the previous month and one is looking to the upcoming month. Right? And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So anyway, there's fascinating insights into the letters themselves and how they express themselves in the month itself. Because the month of Adar can be a super interesting month. Where what do we do in the month of Adar? We're wearing a mask. We're concealing. We might be copying somebody else, a certain type of behavior. And that's all part of the month's ability to express its nature through these letters and these ideas. So Pri Tzaddik says, number 6, On Purim, the evil Amalek is personified in Haman, the persecutor of the Jews. His fall, which occurred during Adar, due to the merit of repentance on their part of the Jewish people, brought the letter Kof into the realm of holiness. Meaning, if you let Kof run on its own, it's partying in the most negative kind of way. Let's go to the inauguration of Achashverosh and have our fun there. And that kind of merrymaking can be super negative. So the month of Adar can be used in this positive way or a negative way, but the Jewish people repented and therefore they were able to reinstate the letter Kaf in a positive kind of way. So the posture of imitation that characterized this month is at the root of the Jewish custom of dressing up in masks during Purim. Laughter and merriment are the highest expressions of joy and gladness. Under usual circumstances, they are forbidden in the world, even in the process of performing a mitzvah. Meaning, an extreme of these things are always bad. The extreme of Kain and Hevel are bad. Remember, in Judaism, every trait that is expressing itself to an extreme is negative. I remember sharing that idea at my Shabbat table, and my son comes up to me, he's like, what do you mean? He's like, everything in an extreme is bad, even learning Torah? I'm like, yeah, even learning Torah to an extreme can become bad. Praying too much can become bad. God does not want you to lose yourself in the world of spirituality. You are here anchored in the physical world to elevate it. You need to find the balance. And what are we talking about? Think about it. The whole struggle of humanity, of mankind, is finding that balance between the material self and the spiritual self, right? If you think about the place that you're challenged the most in your day-to-day, it's like, well, am I spending too much time in feeding my body and while ignoring my soul? Or on the other hand, am I spending too much time ignoring my body and feeding my soul? But the happy person is the one that finds balance. That's what we want, balance. So Adar represents this duality, okay? Yeah.
So for this month, the Shevet and the Shevet campus are both Naphtali, and then the following month of Nisan, they're both Yehuda.
Yeah.
This month, the cap direction is the north, which is Givurah.
Correct.
So what does it mean by like this coming, these 2 consecutive months, they have the same Shevet and the same Shevet camp? What does it mean in terms of the...
Like spiritually over there. Remember that. Well, we're gonna get into it. You're kind of skipping ahead. I'll show you. We'll answer your question before the end of the class. Let's just keep going over here, okay? So Pri Tzaddik is Pri Tzaddik is Rav Tzaddik HaKohen Malublin. He's a genius, and he's one of the most difficult Hasidic writers to actually read. He's brilliant, and he writes in a very terse, concise kind of way. And he expects you to know everything he's talking about, and it's very hard to understand. But this is what he says about the Piscean personality. He says that Pisces personalities, by nature, are very flexible. They can easily adapt to change or bring about change in himself. He is, therefore, able to associate with various types of people. He has the type of personality that makes for a superb actor. Astrology ascribes this trait to Pisces being the last in the wheel of signs, and therefore represents the highest stage of development. The Piscean personality is free of the constraint of material manifestation and can therefore change easily. In Judaism, the great power of Pisces reveals itself in the festival of Purim, in the days of Mordechai and Esther. The Jews underwent a deep change, which resulted in their acceptance of the Torah, out of love of God. The Talmud remarks in the verse in Esther, the Jews upheld and accepted. Kimu v'kiblu. The Jews then willingly accepted the ways of the Torah. Since that time, the spiritual power of the Jews came to be ascendant during that month, and the experience of oppression under the foreign domination became diminished. The ascendancy into holiness is marked by the Purim feast, where the Jews reach the holiness surpasses understanding. We say that Yom Kippur is Yom Kippurim. You heard that idea before, right? Like that the holiest day of the year, Yom Kippur, is almost like Purim, which means that there's something unique about the Purim itself that we fail to fully express because we've spent too much time focusing on the merrymaking and the drinking and the food and the baskets, all the wrong things. Like, it's the weirdest thing. Purim always comes out before Nisan. Nisan is something called Ma'ot Chitim. We have this obligation to give money to the poor, where so much of Purim becomes designer baskets and designer costumes and whatever it is. We're losing touch with the actual meaning of this day, this month, right? So Purim, that holiday, is there to ground us in what our real intention is. Now, it's interesting that that the month of Adar is a chameleon, right? It's always changing, right? It's going back and forth. Which one is it? We determine. Now, the Jewish people receive the Torah in the month of Sivan. Okay, that's sometime in May or June, depending on where the month comes out in. Right, that is when God gave us the Torah. He gave it to us at a time of the year where it's perfect weather, warm. Right, Maimonides always says God did not give us the Torah in a cold climate for a reason. He says that Torah study works best in a warm climate, not in the north. He doesn't understand how the Jews of the north were able to learn up there. It was too difficult for him to understand that. He lived in Egypt, so he had good weather. Anyway, so number 8, the letter Kof is associated with Moshe, who was a makif. The word makif means to encompass, right? He encompassed the wisdom of all the wise men of Egypt with his own. Moses was born and passed away during the month of Adar, the month associated with the letter Kof. The letter of Moses, who personified the level of wisdom and understanding, was attained by Mordechai the righteous, who formed the process whereby the Jews willingly accepted the Torah in the days of Purim. Now, I was saying before that even though the Torah was given in the month of Sivan, the Jews did not fully accept the Torah until Purim. Why? Now, that means that by the time the Purim story takes place, we're talking about the end of the first temple era. Okay, that's 400 years of the Beit HaMikdash, another 250 years or 300 years between Joshua. So you have about 700 years, 800 years almost. Closer to 800 years from the time Joshua comes into the land of Israel and the story of King David building the temple and it being destroyed by the Babylonians. So that means from the time that the Jewish people received the Torah for almost 800 years, the Jews never fully accepted the Torah. What should be your question? Why? So we know that the pasuk tells us that God lifted Mount Sinai, har kigigit, like a barrel over their heads. And Rashi says har kigigit means that if you do not accept the Torah, sham tiyeh kvuratan, this will be your burial place. Which means that we didn't accept the Torah, we were coerced into accepting the Torah. Why was I coerced? Right? Why does God force us? We wanted to back out. We said we can tell God we can't, we're out. Right? As a matter of fact, all the Jewish people died at Mount Sinai. When the first commandment came out, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, Asher Hotzlicha Mi'eretz Mitzrayim, that took you out of the land of Egypt, they all died when they heard that. The angels came back down, pushed the souls back in, and then God spoke again, Lo Yelecha Elokim Achrim, and boom, they died again. And they said to Moshe, we can't handle this is too intense. God is killing us. This experience is killing us. Literally, we're dying. And they said, we don't want to hear from God anymore, let's hear it from you. And that was our mistake. We needed an intermediary and not God by himself. Okay, but because we were forced, the Jewish people felt that when God destroyed the temple, he rejected us, it's over. You can't force belief. If I forced you to marry me, right? Would that be a marriage? There has to be two willing parties, right, in a relationship, and both have to accept it. Once there's coercion, the deal is off. It's not a good deal. If I told my wife, the only way I'll marry you is if you give me $1 million, and then we get married, it's not a good marriage. The marriage has no kedusha, no holiness, right? You can't have marriage dependent on something else. It's like love. Any love that is dependent on something else is not real love. Any marriage that is dependent on something else is not a real marriage. So if we made this connection with God and it was forced upon us, it's not a good marriage. So the idea of Purim, of Kimu v'Kiblu, means that this is the first time in Jewish history that the Jewish people accepted the Torah without the coercion. That's what happened on Purim. Purim is the month where the Jewish people finally accepted the Torah. So in some ways it's connected to the month of Sivan. Because the month of Sivan is when we received the Torah, but it didn't stick. But the month of Adar, with all of its uniqueness, is the month where the Jewish people somehow figure out a way of overcoming their the issue of God forcing us to accept it, and then them recognizing that no, that's something they want to do on their own with their own volition. That was part of the merrymaking of the time of Adar, is that they saw God through the veil of history. He saw God's hand throughout the story unfolding. And they knew that even though they were in exile, God was with them. They never did that before. It was too easy. You see, imagine living in the First Temple era, okay, where you're going to Machne Yehudi, you're going to the Shuk, and in the corner of your eye, you see a massive fire coming down from the heavens over the temple and burning up a sacrifice. That happened every single day for 400 years. Do you think that people were, struggling with their belief in God? No. There was no struggle. But you know what they were struggling with? How committed is God to us? Will he kill us if we disobey? That's not a relationship. So once the temple was destroyed, it's not for me. I'm not coming back. Which is why they were so quickly, within 70 years, not a long period of time, if they completely lose themselves in Achashverosh's party. How did that happen? There's already a breakdown of faith and trust. But the Purim itself created a reconnection to this faith and trust. They recommitted themselves to the Torah. Kimu v'kiblu. That's what's being expressed over here. So that's connected to the month of Adar, the month of Moshe. So in the month of Moshe was this big Torah giver, right? But he gave the month of Sivan. But in his month again, the month of Adar, the Jewish people received the Torah again.
But Rabbi, were the Jewish people forced because there's no other options? There are no other...
Yeah, they were forced. Actually, it's interesting. The Tosafot deals with the question as to why God forced us.
Yeah.
And he says something which is uncomfortable, but you have to think of it, don't take it personally, okay? Don't make it too real for yourself. In halacha, if a man rapes a woman, he has an obligation to marry her with her permission, right? If a boy and a girl have an intimate relationship, right? And it's discovered they were intimate with one another, right? Or if he forced himself onto her, right? Then if she agrees to marrying him, he can never divorce her. Right? And therefore, the Tosafot says that God forced himself, kind of speak, onto the Jewish people so that he could never divorce us. But it didn't create for a healthy relationship. Right?
There's no return, no exchange. God chose the Jewish people.
Correct. But the Jewish people weren't ready to receive God. So the relationship was somewhat fractured, and it's in the month of Adar where it gets repaired. It's all fixed. We chose through our own choices to reconnect and reestablish ourselves and to our faith and our belief in God. Okay, and that's what he's talking about over here in this source over here. He says that the Torah and the days of Purim, I'm on right above source number 9. He says that in source number 8, the acceptance refers to primarily the manifestation of the process of the oral tradition, which according to the Midrash, Tanchuma, the Jews were not in full consent about when they accepted the Torah from Moses. Only upon recognizing the sublime spiritual stature of the sages during the time of Purim, when Mordechai was highly instrumental in effecting the salvation of the Jewish people, which was highly imperiled. Did the Jews willingly accept the authority of the sages? The sign of the month of Pisces symbolized both by the nation of Israel and the Torah. For just as the fish is at home only in the water, where his whole life spent, so too the Jew is only entirely at home when he conducts his life in the ways of Torah, which transforms a life that awaits death to a life of sanctity. The two fishes of Pisces stand for the written and the oral aspects of the Torah. This corresponds to the sign of the month of Sivan, Gemini twins, whose double form also symbolizes the written and oral Torah. So you have this other connection. This month of Sivan, when the Torah, you have the Gemini, month of twins, this duality, and in the month of Adar, you have this duality, because it's expressing the nature of the duality that we live in, the spiritual and the physical selves, body and the soul, that paradigm. Okay? The Vilna Gaon says Adar, the 6th of the winter months, that's the 6th month, right? Symbolizes the 6th millennium, when God will make the circle dance with the righteous. We're talking about the future, at the end of time, in the 6th millennium, which we're in right now, right? God will create this final dance with the righteous, when he will visit retribution on the evil of the nations of the world, with Gog, the rebellious, at their head. And the verse states, he who sits in heaven is laughing, God has them in derision. Right? At that time, the earth will be filled with spiritual wisdom. As the prophet states in Isaiah, the earth will then be filled with the knowledge of God as the water covers the sea. This is the meaning of the water symbol associated with Pisces. The element of this month also is water, symbolizing the effluence of the Torah, which flows with living waters. The sign Pisces marks the sublime period of the Jewish calendar, when man, through the power of his soul, comes to transcend the level of corporeality, the level of his physical self. This is echoed in astrology, which assigns the Piscean personality to the characteristics of wanting to escape from the material plane. Right? Pisces have a hard time with physical things and more into spiritual things. From discrete manifest existence. In its negative aspect, this tendency may express itself in alcoholism, drug abuse. In Judaism, this tendency reaches to the spiritual climax during Purim, when the person, through the indulging and eating and drinking and performance of the mitzvah, becomes utterly sanctified, symbolizing the sign of Adar and two fish facing away from each other. The astrological explanation for this is that one fish is facing the direction of the sign of Aquarius, symbolizing the desire for complete self-rectification in the material realm. The other fish faces Aries, symbolizing the desire to transcend one's material surroundings and attain spiritual awakening. One fish represents wholeness on the physical plane. The other fish represents the everlastingness of the soul. That is the dichotomy of the month. These two ideas coming all together as one. This part is actually really cool. Look at number 11. In Judaism, the two fish symbolize Mordechai and Esther, whom in their righteousness and purity, symbolized by water, brought unity to the Jewish people. And brought light and gladness and joy and honor. Mordechai and Esther, the liberators of the Jewish people in the historical period of Purim, contain the first letters of the names Aleph and Mem, spelling the word M, mother. Right? This is not the first time you saw this idea. Ready? These are also the first letters of the redeemers of the Jews of Egypt, Moses and Aaron, also M, as well as the first letters of the names of our future redeemers, Elijah, Eliyahu, and Mashiach, M. This also explains the relation between the months of Adar and Sivan, Pisces and Gemini, both symbolized by the double form. The twins of Gemini symbolize Moses and Aaron, who liberated the Jews from Egyptian bondage and gave them the Torah during the month of Sivan. So too, the two fish, Pisces, Adar, symbolize Esther and Mordechai, who brought the Jews to accept the Torah out of God. After the liberation during the Persian exile, Mordechai, the Messiah, and Moses, all bring to Israel the sublime enlightenment of the soul, symbolized by the fish, who is at home in water. Esther, Aaron, and Eliyahu, right, bring spiritual rectification to the soul so that it is prepared for the great divine light. Spiritual plane and the physical plane, right? Not an accident. Mordechai and Esther, Moshe and Aaron, Eliyahu and Mashiach. Those same letters are their mothers, so to speak, to bring about the actual growth and change. The element of water, number 12, is associated within the month of Adar, denotes the flexibility of character that allows for profound change. At that which occurred to the Jewish people during Purim. The term Shoshanat Yaakov, the rose of Jacob, used to describe the Jewish soul, indicates the potential for change. Hebrew, shinui, that means change, for during the day of Mordechai and Esther in the Persian exile. The Jews changed their evil ways for the ways of the Torah. This attribute to change also indicates the relation between Adar, the 6th month of the winter month, and Elul, the 6th of the summer months. This is all interconnected. Both months represent an opportunity for growth and change. The question is whether or not you'll jump on board. Okay, I'm just moving a little bit faster. If you have any questions at any point, please feel free to ask. Chadush Harim, the name Adar is related to the word Adir, meaning nobility and power, and refers to the verse in Psalms, Adir b'marom Hashem, the Lord on high is mighty. In this psalm, the evil of the world is symbolized by the voices of the mighty water. The mighty nations who wanted to destroy the Jewish people brought upon themselves the revelation of the mighty God. The waters were transformed into the running waters of penance, referred to in the verse in Lamentations, pour out thy heart like the water before the face of God. The mighty waters also symbolize the nations of the world that seek to engulf the Jewish people, just as the waves of the sea seek to engulf the sandy shore. The sand of the beach is also symbolized the symbol for the Jewish people. We are the boundary, the border. The boundary, the border, the thing that is set apart, the thing that defines the land itself, is an aspect of holiness. Okay? And that's our job. We're here to create and bring holiness to the world. Like bees are here to pollinate, Jews are here to create Kedusha. Sefer Yetzirah, The waters of penance destroy the waters of impurity. This is another meaning for of the significance of Pisces being a water sign. Water symbolizes modesty and humbleness, for water always flows downward, seeking its natural level. For this reason, the Torah is likened to water, the element of water as a symbol of humbleness and submission. Revealed its nature when the Jews during the days of Purim submitted the direction of the Torah. This is also indicated in the letter from the word Adar, Aleph, the Aleph, or Aluf, master, to whom Dalet and the Resh, both meaning poor. The word Dalet comes the word Dal, which means poor. Resh, like Rasha, both also poor deeds. One is poor spiritually, one is poor materially. So Adar is the Aluf, whom is dealing with the Dalet and the Resh. They submitted. It was the attitude of the submission that attracted Israel, the salvation of God. The letters of the name of the sign, Dag, also symbolize this process. Dalet, poor, attracts the Gimel, benefactor. The Gimel is always Gomel Dalim. He's always running after the Dalet. That's the Dag. Astrology associates the Piscean with the physical fragility or fragility and sensitivity to the elements. This poverty in the material realm can return to strength, adirut, from Adar, through one's dedication to the spiritual path of Torah. This was born out of during the period of the sign of the month and the days of Purim. We switched it around, right? Ben Hapachu. The whole month of Purim is about change. It's about growth. What is the month of Adar? What does it want us to change into? It wants you to change so that you can be ready for the nisim, the miracles of Purim, of Pesach. It doesn't just happen, the miracles. The Jews had to prepare themselves. So we know that each plague lasted for about a month, for 3 weeks. And there was a week off, which means 10 plagues over 10 months. Okay? So Adar was the 9th plague, and the last plague, Makah B'charot, was in the month of Nisan, 10th plague. So you have this a transitioning of growth from a slave who is unable to understand and seek his or her freedom, living in Mitzrayim. The word Mitzrayim comes from the words Metzer Yam, a constriction, a sea of constriction. Right? Yam is the ocean. Metzer means constriction. The sea of constriction means that you're so lost. You have such a narrow-minded view of yourself in the world. You're so stuck as a slave, you can't even see truth anymore. You're lost. That's what the Jews were in Egypt. They had to go through 10 of the most eye-opening, mind-bending miracles to get them to a place where they finally have hope again. Yeah.
So the fish, they are swimming under the water.
Yeah.
Not all the time it's bright. Not all the time it's daylight. In the evening it's so dark, and if the fish swim deeper, there's kosher in there.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the 9th plague is
kosher. Yeah. So there's darkness there. So they're always separated.
The fish always open their
And the eyes have never closed. Right. They're always looking for light. Yeah. So it's all part of that, that same storytelling. What are we doing right now? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to peel away, aspects of the month and show you how the month itself is telling you a spiritual truth. That's all I'm doing. You think of the Zodiac as just being a sign that tells me about my personality. I'm telling you that it's much more than that. The masters of the Zodiac were the Jews, right? If you were living only 500 years ago, right, and you were a captain of a ship, and you wanted to set sail, you needed a Jewish, astrologer and a sea master to come with you to navigate the oceans, because they were experts in understanding the stars. Right? Now, the problem with being an expert in anything is that you think you know. That's the problem. When in fact you don't know. The beauty of being uninformed is that hopefully, if you're a humble, uninformed person, you just don't know. The fear of having that wisdom, this was Hevel's problem. Hevel's problem, right, was that he thought he knew. He didn't know. Right? Cain thought that he knew. He didn't know. They both didn't know. They both lacked humility. Two extremes. Okay, the Arizal Eitz Chaim, number 15. I'm sorry, this is your brainy class today. But the month of Adar requires if you want to understand the simcha, the happiness, the true expression of the month of Adar, you have to allow it to come from the mind. Most people make the mistake in allowing their emotions to help them connect to a particular holiday or situation, a person, a decision for the family. This is a mistake. You need to allow yourselves to feel. I'm not saying that to ignore your feelings, enjoy your feelings, but that's just there to help you be sensitive, to awaken you. But the choice, the decision, the way we operate our lives has to come from a cerebral place. Has to. If it's not cerebral, I'm not saying when it's cerebral you can't make mistakes. You certainly can, right? We know plenty of intelligent people have made a lot of mistakes, right? But you're not here to worry about how the choice you've made was right or wrong. You have to be able to say to yourself, I made the best possible choice. And the only way I know I can make the best possible choice is if it's coming from a place of the intellect. It can't be the heart. The heart is good, but if you rely on it too much, it gets you into trouble. Okay, number 15. The part of the body associated with the month of astrology is the sole of the foot, the extremity of the human body, the last part of the body corresponding to the month of Adar, the month of the year. The heel, Ekev, is composed largely of dead flesh. This is born out of the word formed by the letters immediately following the word Ekev. Ayin, Peh, Kof, Resh, Beth, Gimel. Spelling the word Peger, corpse. However, we know that the sole of the foot is the most ticklish, which brings about laughter. So too the month of Adar, the last month of the year, has its expressive motion, laughter. The negative expression of laughter is frivolity, is expressive of the power of Malek. Amal Kof, the mischief of the monkey. The wicked man is arrogant. His name is buffoon. However, in the future liberation, our months will be filled with laughter. Because of holiness, Israel merits joy and gladness during the holiday Purim. Laughter is permissible only when the service of the most lofty level of holiness. It is a form of expression reserved for the most righteous of people. As the Talmud states, Rav Bruno never ceased from laughter ever since he began to say the blessing over the future redemption before engaging in prayer. The condition of laughter flows naturally from one who transcends the bonds of the physical plane. This level transcendence is given to us during the holiday of Purim, the sign of Pisces, and its proximity to the sign of Aries. Now, you'll see why Aries is important here also. Kedushas Levi says that the month of Adar is the tribe of Naphtali. That's what you were asking, Esther. About whom it is said, Naphtali is satisfied with favor. The sense of satisfaction with blessings comes as a result of the acceptance of the Torah out of love of God. It is aroused every year during Purim, when the Jewish nation reaffirms its willingness to accept the Torah. This month also includes the tribe of Levi. The month of Adar is associated with the tribe of Yosef. His two sons, Ephraim and Menashe, correspond to the first and the second Adar. Remember that the month of Adar is also could be in a Shana Me'uberet, in a pregnant year, because we follow the lunar calendar. The lunar calendar only has 355 days and something hours, right? But we also align our lunar calendar with the solar calendar. The solar calendar has 365 days, right? Now, that means at the end of every year, you'll have about 11 and a half days that are missing, and they get misaligned. So every 3 or 4 years, we will add a month to the calendar. When do we do that? In the month of Adar. So the month of Adar has more Shvatim in it than other months, right? So we're trying to catch up. Try to realign the calendars together. Okay, this sense of satisfaction and blessing comes as a result of acceptance of the Torah and the love of God. It is aroused every year during Purim, and the Jewish nation reaffirms its willingness to accept the Torah. The month also includes Levi and Ephraim. We did that already. The second Adar, Yoshua, who is the progeny of Ephraim, the son of Yosef, engaged in the battle with the nation of Amalek, and after him, both Shaul and Mordechai, descendant from Benjamin, Joseph's brothers, engaged in the Amalek battle. The month of Adar is about the Jewish people overcoming Amalek. What is Amalek? Amalek is Safek, it's doubt, it's uncertainty, right? I believe on so many levels that what is happening right now in Gaza is very much an expression of Amalek. The Rambam says Amalek is not a nation, it's an ideology. And therefore, if you create a death cult, right? Remember, there's a death cult.
Death cult?
Cult. Of people that worship death, right? By the way, you see this in Rashi's expression of when he tries to explain what Amalek is. Rashi gives two metaphors about Amalek. What's one? One is like they're like a bee. After they sting, it dies. And the other is like a man who decides to throw himself in scalding hot water so he could cool it off the guy after him. Comes after him. To cool off the hot, scalding water for the guy that comes after him. So both cases of Amalek describe someone who's willing to commit suicide for his ideology. That's Amalek. When we find a death cult, which I can't say halachically that has the status of Amalek, but when I saw those girls being freed, and you see those insane, ridiculous animals around them screaming like whatever, you know, I was ready to go ahead and go Rambo in there and just like blow everything up. You know, that is not, we have to be clear that when we see evil in the world, we have to be willing to stomp it out. If we're not able to stomp it out, if we become too haughty and we are we're callous to their behavior, we're gonna pay for it in a very serious way, and that's exactly what happened.
We're releasing thousands.
Oh yeah, okay, that's okay.
Are you saying we can pay for it now too?
I think so. I think we'll pay for it as long as we don't keep our eye on the prize. We have to do a better job at letting the world know that this is a death cult, that no one, any other nation on the planet, which other people in the world have gone to war with their sworn enemy after creating a pogrom and then choosing to send in 600 trucks of aid every single day.
Why are they doing that? I don't understand.
Right? It makes absolutely no sense. At the very least, you know what they should do? They should make a new law that says we are no longer exporting cement into the Gaza Strip. You have no cement, you can't build tunnels. You know what you should do? We should build houses like they did in the Palisades, right? We're gonna give you wood, you're gonna build with wood, and that's how you're gonna build your houses. You're gonna build stone structures, not good. We don't want that anymore. No more stone structures. We're gonna put you back to the Dark Ages. You wanna behave like savages in the dark? Well, you'll live like savages in the Dark Ages.
How do they know in those 8 trucks they're not ammunition and guns and all?
Because it's coming from Israel.
Israel supplied all this aid? No.
Israel is supervising the entrance.
Did they actually go through? I thought they stopped doing that once they made the deal.
They're still doing it. They're still doing it. Everything coming in is going through their eyes. Now, I suspect there's for sure other tunnels that Israel, we know that they don't have access to.
You know what?
That Israel does not have access to all the tunnels. There's still tunnels that are in use with ammunition and other things, this and that, and they don't know where they are, and they are very far from completing their job there. And the only two options there, the only way to win a war is to completely obliterate the enemy, or to do what we do with Germany and Japan, reform their education, and it has to come from them. I don't see the Palestinian people wanting to go through educational reform because this is a religious death cult, spiritual for them. So that means they leave us no choice but to become the worst possible version of a human being that says we're going to have to commit genocide. Who says that committing genocide is evil? If you have to commit genocide to protect and spare the righteous, that's not evil. It's a very scary thing to say because you could justify all kinds of craziness. But we have to agree that when people no longer sanctify human life, when a woman who comes out of jail after being in jail for 5 years and says to her son, to her daughter, don't worry about it. I'm not going back to fight Israel, but I have 17 kids that I'm willing to sacrifice to fight Israelis. Something is wrong and sick and broken with you. It's twisted. That you see a child as a weapon is sick. Sickness. So the month of Adar is a month of hope. It's a month that transforms uncertainty to certainty. It transforms the lack of clarity to a month of clarity. A month where the Jewish people thought they were going to be completely obliterated to a month of hope and pride and beauty. Okay? Let's look at the number 18. We have two more over here, and then we'll go through the personality types. B'nai Yissaschar says, Haman's decree of destruction of the Jewish people said the second Adar. Haman, according to the Ari, was an incarnation of the primal serpent, who was a magician. In Hebrew, word for the serpent, Nachash, is related to the word malevolent, a magician, Menachesh, as a characteristic of the Maleki nation in general. God nullified his intention of destruction by causing the lot to be cast for the second Adar, which is not associated with the astrological sign and is therefore impervious to malevolent magical influence. So if you were born in the second Adar Bet, you are completely out of the astrological sign because you're not in the sign, you're different. What does that mean, Adar Bet? It's Pisces 2, part 2. You had it already. So you have a month that is symbolically represents the outside, above nature. And therefore, when Haman's decree came out, it happened in Adar Bet, not in Adar Aleph. And therefore, we knew on some spiritual level that whatever was going to happen wouldn't stick. God created a system where the system could be broken, right? That decree does not have to work. The Zohar says as follows. He says the heavenly body that rules over Pisces is Jupiter. Jupiter, the largest planet, it is 2 times larger than any other planet in our solar system. Actually, do you know that Jupiter has no landmass? If you had a rocket ship and you were flying through Jupiter, you would not hit anything. You can't land it, it's just gas. It's one big ball of gas. That's all it is, there's nothing there. It looks like a planet, but it has an atmosphere because it's so big. Now you would never be able to fly through it because there's so much pressure, because it's so big, that you'd be squished. But if you had a vehicle that could withstand any amounts of pressure, you could fly right through it. By the way, just like the sun.
Meaning what? You can fly through the sun?
The sun has no mass.
So you can fly right through?
If you wouldn't melt by approaching it, then yes, you could fly through it. It's just helium exploding. That's all it is.
That's it.
That's all it is. It's not like lava, which is melted rock. We're talking about helium you can't touch. You can fly right through it, right? So, but Jupiter's like that as well. So that's the month. Now, with Jupiter is interesting because it's so big, it actually corresponds to 2 different months, right? The planet that rules Sagittarius. During these 2 months, the sages instituted 2 holidays, Hanukkah and Purim, when the power of deceit and evil characterized by the Greek and Amalek stood in opposition to the righteousness, right? Hebrew Jupiter is Zodiac, which means righteousness. Of the Torah, and were defeated. During Hanukkah, the victory belonged to the righteousness, right? The Torah during Purim, the victory belonged to the righteousness of Israel. The wounding of Jacob's thigh and the guardian spirit of Esav, with his desire to part of evil to end the financial support of the Torah, for just as the leg and the thigh support the body so that it can stand upright, so too benefactors of the study Torah support the upright position of the nation of Israel. According to our sages, both the right and the left thighs were wounded by Esav's guardian spirit. The right thigh came to symbolize Purim, the left Hanukkah. This is the source of the custom to increase the giving of charity during these 2 holidays. Okay, can we just finish this? Okay, let's skip the Sefer Yetzirah, which explains about the 2 different natures of Jupiter, and let's go straight into the bottom of right underneath source number 20. Adar, February 20th to March 20th. Okay, that's Pisces. Personality key traits: imaginative, sensitive, compassionate, selfless, and empathetic. Secretive and easily influenced by others. Behavioral patterns: they shy yet talkative and excellent listeners to those who are in need. They are easily hurt by criticism, especially from trusted individuals. Their unique abilities are strong precognitive powers, dreaming of sensing future events. They are versatile and adaptive, though vulnerable to being taken advantage of because they're so lost in their own mind. Strengths and weaknesses: allows others to lean on them, but need someone to lean on too. They're not super independent, not like Aries. Their strengths: they're charming, they're humorous, artistic, and creative, often musicians, actors, and so on and so forth. Not materialistic, but enjoy comfortable life. Their weaknesses are: they tend to avoid challenges and prefer the path of least resistance. They're susceptible to negative influences like alcohol and drugs, we saw that earlier. May face financial trouble due to lack of planning. They're all over the place. Their emotional needs as follows, right? Their reassurance and affection are more important than material needs, right? Best match with one who understands their sensitivity and provide emotional security, Pisces are excel in performing arts and emotional expression, use of imagination and compassion to connect with others, challenges they need to overcome: fear of hard work, impatience for success, caregiving in nature. They tend to love for animals and those who are in need. Pisces men admire beauty, need reassurance, and are fun with children. Pisces women are very feminine, devoted, compassionate, and sentimental. Okay, now Pisces children. You have to encourage artistic and musical pursuits, avoid harsh criticism, offer positive reinforcement, teach them to cope with life's realities very early on. For Pisces bosses, right, best suited for creative and charitable fields, require supportive employees for organization, compassionate and open to ideas, but struggle with decision making. Traits to work on: diligence. You have to combat laziness and stay focused. You have to balance imagination with real-world skills. Avoid holding grudges or being overly sensitive. Be mindful of words and avoid excessive talkativeness. Forgive easily and embrace change. Overcome a reliance on illusion and face challenge practically. Here are my final thoughts. Pisces combine traits from all of the signs, making them compassionate, imaginative, and complete. Right? Understanding oneself and others fosters harmony and strengthened relationships. Following spiritual guidance, like the Torah's teachings, help Pisces fulfill their potential. Success comes from embracing challenges, self-awareness, and balance. Because Adar is the last month, it encompasses everything inside of it, but because everything is in there, they're all over the place. If they're not grounded with the kuf, they fly away like the hay, like the hevel, and they accomplish absolutely nothing. Bezrat Hashem, I will not be here next Wednesday. I'm not here. I'm going on my father-son journey next week. We're going to end up going to Miami. That's where the journey begins. I don't know. I think that's why I chose Florida. I have so many options. Probably in Surfside, in Surfside. But Bezrat Hashem will be back the following week. Yeah, questions?
I just have a question. So my mother was born in Adar, and she unfortunately died in Adar.
Okay.
So what is the concept? She wasn't born in Adar at the same birthday, it's a holiness. But my mother was born and she died on the same parsha, which is something very special. What is the original?
She may have been born and died on the same day. If you know the Hebrew day of it.
Yeah, I did.
And it's not the same?
But the parsha is the same.
Okay, so it's the same week.
Why is there so significant that?
It has to do with completion. Like Moses was born and died on the same day.
So that means her life was complete.
Correct.
In this reincarnation.
Correct.
Which is very interesting because I'll tell you one other thing very quickly. I don't want to take.
Go for it.